Hello, y'all. Welcome back to the Ball Don't Lie podcast. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Appreciate you guys for tuning in today. So, I'm gonna get right into it. There's gonna be some changes to the show. Um, I am deciding to step away from the normal live streams that I used to do. Explain. Explain. But I'm gonna be kind of going away from the normal live streams because I'll explain why. It's been a little overwhelming and stressful. My mental health is a little off right now, so I'm kind of feeling up and down all the time, and the prep was a bit overwhelming. Having to get ready for a certain time, it all just got a little overwhelming for me right now. But I'm gonna stop doing that because it's just been very stressful and it just wasn't working out. I always felt bad after, and didn't feel like I was performing at my best. So instead, I'm still gonna be making videos. And today, I thought I'd do a nice little stream where um, oh, dudes on my screen. I've got quite a lot of them. I've got Canelo, Luca, Bukayo Saka, soccer player, CJ Stroud, Matthew Stafford, Joe Burrow, Messi, Mbappe, another soccer player, and then Sean O'Malley, UFC fighter. That's who I got. But overall, I think doing 5 days a week initially was a bit too much. It kind of got me out of my groove, and I've kind of been struggling to get back into that groove, and it's been a little. I don't know. I'm just not. I don't like because I don't want to quit, which is why I'm still doing something. But I also don't want to do something if I'm one not going to enjoy it, and number two, I'm not going to be performing at my best. So I'm going to be taking a little bit of a step back from the streaming at certain days and having to be ready at certain points because there was times where I just wasn't, I have really bad trouble stepping out of my comfort zone with stuff because when I step out of my comfort zone, I get really anxious, and then one thought leads to another, and before you know it, I don't want to do it. And it's like 1 minute I want to, the next minute I don't, and it just kind of, I don't know. It's a lot to juggle and do prep at the same time. So I'm going to be doing a little bit different. I'll do these streams, and I've got pre-recorded videos. The goal for that is whenever I'm having moments where I feel good, I'll film then, and then I'll just start the stream here, do the intro, and then you guys can watch the pre-recorded video. I think that might be a better solution instead of having to be ready at a specific point because I'm not doing great right now. I won't lie, but I still want to do stuff. So today I'm going to obviously do this intro, and then I will share my screen and you can watch my recent video that I just uploaded on YouTube. I'm doing more videos and more of these types of streams instead of, what I was doing before. I think that's best for me right now. I'm gonna work on myself a little bit, work on my mental and physical health first. I'm gonna work on that a little bit because I think I went into the deep end a little too fast and hasn't really been working. So I'm gonna try to do some. I'm gonna bob and weave instead of trying to run through a wall. So that's what I'm doing. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you watching every single time. You mean a lot to me, brother. I appreciate you, Derek. You guys are the best. You three, everybody that's been watching, you guys are the best. I don't really care about viewers or anything. I just appreciate you guys for supporting me. I appreciate it very much so. So this is what I'm going to be doing. I'll be uploading videos, and the streams I do will be the pre-recorded videos. I think that'll be I'll be flexible with it, but that's kind of that's the route I'm going to go for right now. I think it's best for me right now. So as you can see, I did my full season predictions. I've done records for each team, playoffs, Super Bowl pick, MVP. I've done it all. It's an hour-long video, and I think without further ado, I think we should get right into it. All right, so I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I'll be in the chat throughout it if you guys want to chat with me there. But without further ado, I think I've explained everything I want to explain because I don't want to quit, but I also don't want to do something if it's not gonna like make me happy. I think this will be better, just a more like a less stressful way of making content instead of having to do it at a certain time. It was just piling up and becoming quite stressful, and I'm quite don't want to say bipolar, but my emotions like up down up down. So yeah, what do you mean? Yeah, my settings are cool. I know you're on tour, by the way. Have I explained myself clearly? Are you guys cool with that? I still want to do something. Appreciate you, Derek. You're a good human. I still want to do something because I enjoy talking about it, but I'm doing it more controlled, so I don't burn myself out. And I don't want to be stressed during football season. I want to enjoy it, but I also want to talk as well. So I've got a pre-recorded video for you guys. How you guys doing today? I'll play this video in a minute. Ba-na-na. I don't really know what you mean. I think it should be okay. All my streams have worked fine. All my videos have worked fine. All right. Shout out to the 4 of you in here, by the way. I appreciate you guys. I'm going to do, yeah. I'm ready as well, man. I'm going to have an interview with a very special guest coming out. Someone you may have heard of. I'll be covering the game. Appreciate you, Shift Guide. You're a G. You're my guy there. I appreciate it. I appreciate it a lot. Yeah, if you, I know you can't, but if you showed me it like visually, I would do it. Okay, I appreciate the advice, brother. I appreciate it. I know we've gotten into some arguments, but I appreciate the help. Yeah, me too, man. I'm stoked. Hey, before I play the video, college football thoughts from me. Cam Ward's the truth. That man's winning the Heisman, and he's going to be the first quarterback taken. I'm calling it now. That dude is different. Miami winning the ACC, and Cam Ward's winning the Heisman, in my opinion. I'm calling it now. You can save this. That dude's winning it. That dude is different. My guy. Cool. But yeah, Cam Ward, that dude's legit. And then number 2, Miller Moss. I saw this man's first game in person at the Holiday Bowl. And this dude threw 6 touchdowns. Balling. Right there, I knew this guy was going to be a stud. Goes out there and shreds LSU. Shreds them. 2-minute drill. That's my guy. I feel personally attached to him because I saw his first game. And he killed it. You got Texas. Let's be honest, Georgia, man. Dude, Dabo Swinney's so overrated. It's crazy. Although Kate Klubnik does kind of suck. But those are my 2 takeaways from college. Cam Ward and Miller Moss. Look out for them. Look out for both of them. Okay. We'll get into the predictions. Hope you guys enjoy. I'll be in the chat. And yeah, let's get cooking. Let me know if you guys. Bye-bye. I appreciate you guys. Like the stream, sub. Appreciate you guys. You guys. Yes, I have. I went to USC last year, Holiday Bowl. It was fun. It was at Petco Park. Miller Moss balled his first game. I got to see it. It was dope. I'm hoping to go to another USC game this year because it looked to be pretty good. But here are my official record predictions for every team, Super Bowl picks, and award predictions. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Ball Don't Lie podcast. In today's video, today's episode, you could say, I'm going to be making my official NFL 2024 season predictions. We're predicting the whole thing, predicting every team's record. We're going through the playoff bracket. I'll have my official Super Bowl pick here. I will also predict every award in the NFL. So make sure, drop a like if you enjoy it. Subscribe to the pod for daily NFL content. We're going to be doing this all year. It's going to be fun. So let's get into it. We're doing this slideshow. We're going to go through division by division, and I will show you my record prediction for all of these teams. So first up, we're going to do the AFC East. In last place, I do have the New England Patriots. I think they finished with a measly 12-5 record. I think they will have the number 1 overall pick in this draft. The New England Patriots, they were already a bottom tier team when they had Matthew Judon. Now they traded away their only really good player on their defense, aside from Christian Gonzalez. Gerard Mayo, rookie head coach. They're going to be starting Jacoby Brissett right away, which I don't think that's the move. I think you might as well put Drake May out there, see what he has. But I think this whole team overall is just lacking talent. I do think it will get better over time, but I just found it hard to find wins on their schedule. Their division is really tough this year. I think the Jets, Buffalo, and the Dolphins will be really good, and their schedule is quite hard, the Patriots. So I think they struggled this year. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson's nice. I do like some of the young receivers they have, but overall, I just don't think it's going to be enough. Christian Gonzalez is the best player on the team by far. You do have Kyle Duggar, Jabril Peppers. You've got some okay players, but I think they're going to struggle to keep up in that division, and I think it could fall apart pretty quickly. So I have the Patriots. I think they'll be the worst team in football this year. In third place in the division, I have the Miami Dolphins going 10-7. I think they will be similar to what they were last year. I think they will start off the season very strong. And I think towards the end of the year, when you start to playing colder games, that might middle out or even out to about 10-7. I think they were 11-6 last year. They'll be 10-7 this year. Tua, very good quarterback. However, I do have questions on number 1, whether he can stay healthy, and number 2, whether he can finish a season strong instead of, normally in September and October, he's really good. And towards the end of the year, he falls apart. I need to see him do it consistently for a full year. Their offense as a whole, though, is terrific. And I think when you have a top 5 offense, you should be winning at least 9 or 10 games. I love Mike McDaniel as a head coach. I think Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane is a terrific running back duo. Tyreek Hill is the top 2 wide receiver in football. Jalen Waddle is a damn good number 2. Terron Armstead's a very good left tackle. I do have concerns about their offensive line outside of Terron Armstead. And then on the defense, you have Jalen Phillips coming back from injury. Bradley Chubb when he comes back. I don't love their secondary outside of Ramsey and Javon Holland. So I do think that might be what holds them back a little bit. And they did lose Christian Wilkins and replace him with Calais Campbell, Benito Jones. Chop Robinson's a nice player, but I didn't think that was a big need for them. So I don't love what they're doing on the defensive side of the ball. But with Jalen Ramsey last year, their defense did get better. And with Jalen Phillips back, I think he'll be a good enough pass rusher. He's a very good pass rusher. So I think the Dolphins will be a dangerous team. I just don't think they'll be in the upper echelon teams because offensive line concerns, defensive line concerns, and their quarterback is hit or miss. So I think they'll be 10-7. Second place in the division, barely. I have the Buffalo Bills going 10-7 as well. The way I did it, the tiebreaker ended up giving it to Buffalo. I would probably have Miami second. I think they're the second best team, but sorry, excuse me. The Bills they got the tiebreaker in the record predictions I did. So I think the Bills go 10-7. I think they take a bit of a step back this year, but I don't think they will miss the playoffs like some people think. I do think the Bills have been fairly overrated throughout the years, but I do think they've maybe not become underrated, but I think people are forgetting that they still have Josh Allen. He's a top 3 quarterback in football. You got James Cook, I think, is going to have a great year. I don't hate their receiver room as much as everybody else. I think Keon Coleman will be very good. Khalil Shakir is going to be a nice player. Curtis Samuel still solid. Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox is a very good 1-2 punch at tight end. Their offensive line is solid. Their defense did lose a lot of talent. Matt Milano is now injured for the year. Von Miller is getting older. Ed Oliver, Greg Rousseau are still very good. I just think this defense as a whole will take a bit of a step back, and I don't love Sean McDermott. So that's why I think brings it down from 11, 12 wins to 10. But I still think as long as you have Josh Allen and you have a good enough team around him, I think you're winning 9, 10 games as a floor. I think they'll get to 10 this year. But I do think they probably fire Sean McDermott after this year because I don't think 10-7 will be acceptable. But I think the Bills will be a good team. I think they'll be one of the tougher teams to play every week, but I think they might lose a couple more of those 50-50 games just because I think their defense will take a little bit of a step back. But I do think Josh Allen will have slightly less interceptions because I don't think he'll be forcing it down the field as much. I think he'll have, without Diggs and Davis, I think he'll be more of a dink and dunk quarterback. So I think that might be good for them. But I think they go 10-7 this year. In first place in that division, the New York Jets, I have them going 11-6. On paper, this New York Jets team looks terrific. I mean, Aaron Rodgers I never thought I would ever have to say that Aaron Rodgers is the main question mark for a team, but you do have to almost wonder what he'll look like when he comes back. But I think when you look at the roster, and I do think Robert Saleh does have a lot to prove as a coach, but when you look at this roster top to bottom, I mean, it's one of the most stacked in the NFL. You have Breece Hall, who I think will be a top 4 running back, maybe top 3 running back in football this year. He had 1,500 yards, total yards last year, and he had Zach Wilson, Tim Boyle, and your local McDonald's owner playing quarterback. So I think with Aaron Rodgers playing, that will only open him up, and I think he could easily have 1,800 all-purpose yards. Garrett Wilson, I think, is going to explode this year and enter the top 5 wide receivers in the NFL. Outside of Garrett Wilson, I don't love what they're doing at receiver. Lazard, Malachi Corley was a nice pick, but I love what they did on the offensive line. You have Elijah Vera Tucker coming back from injury. You added Morgan Moses and Tyron Smith as the tackles. You also drafted Olu Fashanu out of Penn State. Then you look at their defense. You have Jermaine Johnson, Will McDonald, Javon Kinlaw, Quinnen Williams, who's one of the best D tackles in the league. You have, in my opinion, the best linebacking duo in C.J. Mosley and Quincy Williams. You have Sauce Gardner, who I think is the best corner in football. DJ Reed, Michael Carter Jr., like Chuck Clark. Like they just are stacked. Hassan Reddick, hopefully he will play. And if he plays, I mean, this defense, I think, will be a top 5 defense in football at the floor. And as long as that offense is good enough with Rodgers, I think they'll be one of the best teams in the AFC. But I do have slight question marks about Aaron Rodgers and what he'll look like. But if he can even be a top 10 quarterback, this team's going to win a lot of games. So I like what the Jets are doing this year. Outside of, the only slight concerns, interior O-line and wide receiver options out of Wilson. I think that might hold them back just a little bit from getting 12 and 13 wins, but they're going to be good. The Jets are going to have their best year in a while. Next up, we have the AFC North, and I have, as you can see, the Cleveland Browns finishing last in that division. I'm going 8-9. The Browns, on paper, look really good. I just hate the quarterback situation that they have. Deshaun Watson, don't like it all. Nick Chubb isn't going to be healthy for the first few games of the year. Amari Cooper is fantastic. Outside of that, you have Jerry Jeudy, who threw a bag at for no reason. Elijah Moore, solid. David Njoku's a nice tight end. Their offensive line's still very good. And on defense, you have Myles Garrett. You have Zadarius Smith. You have Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, as I say his name. You have Denzel Ward at corner, who's been getting concussed for a while. I might have to watch out for that. Like, this team on paper should be good. If they had 2020 Deshaun Watson, they'd be a 11-12 win team easily. But they've got 2024 Deshaun Watson. 2024 Deshaun Watson isn't a good quarterback. He's never going to be a good quarterback. I don't know how much more we have to see before we realize that he's a below average quarterback now. And I think in this AFC North, in this AFC, if you don't have a great quarterback, you're not going to win 11, 12 games. I don't think it's going to happen. I think they'll split with that division, but I think they'll lose a lot of games due to their quarterback play being below average. I think Kevin Stefanski's a great head coach. I think he's really underrated, but I think it's tough. I think if they were in a different division, if they were in like the NFC South, they'd probably up that wins total to 10-9 maybe, but the AFC is so stacked, and I think they'll lose their place in there. So I think they'll be 8-9 on the outside looking in. Third place, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers, finishing 9-8. Similar story to the Browns, except I think their roster overall is slightly better, and I think Mike Tomlin just has a knack for getting over 500, so I think that they'll go 9-8. 9-8 is just a typical Pittsburgh Steelers type of year. I mean, God, my neck, throat's bad. Apologies. But when you look at their roster, I mean, you got Najee Harris, Jalen Warren. That's a great 1-2 punch at running back. You have George Pickens, who I think is a very talented wide receiver. They reloaded the offensive line in the draft by adding Troy Fautanu, Mason McCormick, Zach Frazier. On defense, you have Cameron Hayward, who they just re-signed to an extension. T.J. Watt, the best defensive lineman in football. Patrick Queen from the Ravens. Minkah Fitzpatrick, Joey Porter Jr., Dante Jackson, Alex Highsmith, Mike Tomlin as the head coach. Roster overall looks terrific, but they've got two quarterbacks. And if you have two quarterbacks, you have none. And you've got Russell Wilson, who, again, is below average. I think as long as he can be a game manager, I think Steelers will win a lot of football games. But again, like I said, similar with the Browns, if you don't have a great quarterback in this AFC, you're going to get weeded out. And I think that they'll end up going 9-8. They'll be a pain in the ass to play every week. But I think the quarterback play will. Even if Russell Wilson was like a Baker Mayfield or a Geno Smith or a Tua, this team's winning 11 games. I don't think Russell Wilson's good anymore. You saw in the preseason, and I think Justin Fields probably takes his job, and I don't think Justin Fields is good either. So I think they need to figure out their quarterback situation because they're kind of stuck in the mud right now without the quarterback. Second place, I have the Baltimore Ravens at 12-5. It's unfortunate that they're second place at 12-5. In down near any other division, they'd be first. But Baltimore Ravens, as long as you have Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh at the helm, you're going to win a lot of football games. You have Derrick Henry there now, who that read option with him and Lamar is just going to be very difficult to stop all year. I don't love their wide receiver room, though, and this seems to be a common theme. You have Zay Flowers, who I think is very good. You got Rashawn Bateman, Nelson Aguilar, Devontae Walker. I do think Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely are options. It was a lot on their offensive line, and that's been a storyline throughout camp. Their defense should still be great, but they lost Mike McDonald, who was a terrific defensive coordinator. So will they be the best defense in football again? I'm not sure. And with the Derrick Henry addition, it's Derrick Henry's a terrific player, but it wasn't like a need for them. So I don't think they've nailed the offseason, Baltimore, but they're still a terrific team. When you look at their defense, you have, Matt Abuke signed an extension, Roquan Smith, Marlon Humphrey, Kyle Hamilton is one of the top 3 safeties in football, Marcus Williams. You've got, Nate Wiggins, I think is going to be a terrific rookie. I think that was a great pick. They're still going to be terrific. And as long as you have Lamar Jackson, he falls into the Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, CJ Stroud category, where as long as you have them on your team, you're going to be a damn good team. You're going to compete for a Super Bowl championship. And I do think the Ravens will still be a top 10 defense. And I think they'll win enough games just by riding Derrick Henry, and Lamar Jackson with that run game. And I do think Zay Flowers is a nice wide receiver one. But there's a couple question marks, which is why I have him dropping from 13 to 12. First place, Cincinnati Bengals. This is tricky because I think the Ravens, top to bottom, are a better football team, but the Bengals have the way easier schedule, and I have them going 12-5 with that schedule this year. And I think this will be a resurgent season for the Bengals. I don't love the Ja'Marr Chase stuff. It seems like there's just been too much drama this offseason. So that is a question mark, but he's going to be there. As long as Joe Burrow, Ja'Marr Chase, T. Higgins are on the offense, it's going to be one of the best offenses in football. I don't think losing Joe Mixon will be that big of a deal. I think Chase Brown and Zach Moss will be a nice duo there. I think this is going to be the best offensive line that he's had in front of him, being Joe Burrow. Yeah, they added Trent Brown and Amarius Mims, who I think was a terrific addition in the draft. And on defense, you got Trey Hendrickson, who was incredibly underrated, 17 sacks last year. You did lose DJ Reader, but you have BJ Hill, you have Sheldon Rankins, you drafted Chris Jenkins. Like, they did a nice job of replacing him. You got Logan Wilson, who's terrific, Jermaine Pratt. And I think this secondary, I think Cam Taylor-Britt's going to be really good. They added Von Bell and Geno Stone, so their safety position's much stronger. You have Dax Hill, DJ Turner, Mike Hilton as your nickel, and Zach Taylor, who I think is a proved a lot as a head coach last year with what he did after Joe Burrow went down. Bengals are going to be back. The Cincinnati Bengals are back. Joe Burrow is going to have the best season of his career. Jamar Chase is going to go nuts. And this team's going to win a lot of football games. When Joe Burrow was healthy last year, they cooked the Niners on the road in San Francisco, and they were rolling. So I think the Bengals have a terrific year. They go back to 12, 13 wins. Next up, AFC South. I have the Tennessee Titans going 7-10. And to be honest, I really wanted to have them higher. I just couldn't find more wins on their schedule, but I like what the Titans are doing, man. I think question mark at quarterback. Will Levis needs to be a bit more consistent for sure, but losing Derrick Henry is not going to be good for that offense. But you add Calvin Ridley, you add Tyler Boyd, you have DeAndre Hopkins there. You drafted J.C. Latham, added Lloyd Cushenberry. They beefed up that offensive line a little bit. I still have question marks on the right side of the line. And on the defense, you have Jeffrey Simmons, who's terrific, Sebastian Joseph Day. You drafted T'Vondre Sweat. You added Ernest Jones from the Los Angeles Rams. You have a very good secondary. You added L'Jarius Sneed, Chidobe Awuzie, Quandre Diggs. I like what they're doing. I like what the Tennessee Titans are doing. Their defense is going to be terrific. I think probably should have kept a hold of Mike Vrabel. I think Brian Callahan will do good for Levis there. So I think the Titans are going to be a very tough team to play against. They're going to steal a couple wins off of top contenders. I just don't think that they have the upper echelon talent to compete with the best teams in the AFC. But the Titans have done a great job this offseason. They're moving in the right direction for sure. Okay, next up in the AFC South, coming third place, I have the Indianapolis Colts. I think they go 9-8 this season. They went, I believe, 9-8 last year with Gardner Minshew as their quarterback. So you're probably thinking, well, Anthony Richardson's an upgrade. They should get more wins. I like that logic, but I just still think Anthony Richardson, he's not guaranteed to be like this top 10 guy. I mean, it really depends. Like if Anthony Richardson explodes and then let's say he takes a Jalen Hurts step, this team could win 10, 11 games. But I'm not sure he's that player. I think Jonathan Taylor's terrific, but he's been hurt a lot, but we'll assume he stays healthy. Jonathan Taylor will be a terrific running back. Michael Pittman Jr. is a very underrated wide receiver. I love the addition of Adonai Mitchell. Like this Colts team, they really could win 10, 11 games. I just think the problem for me is the secondary. Don't love their corners. The only player on that secondary that's worth a damn, in my opinion, is Julian Blackmon. But I love the addition of Laiatu Latu. You have DeForest Buckner, EJ Speed, Zaire Franklin as your linebackers. Like their front seven, very good. They're often like this is a very sound, good football team that will be in contention for the playoffs. I just don't think they quite have the upside. I think Shane Steichen's a great head coach. And I think they're definitely heading in the right direction. And if Anthony Richardson ends up being a top 10 guy, they're going to be very good. But I just think that they're a couple pieces away from being a true AFC contender, but they'll be in the mix for the wild card hunt for sure. I like what the Colts are doing. Shane Steichen's terrific, and you saw the impact he had on Jalen Hurts and what happened when he left that offense. So I think they're going to be a really solid team this year, but not amazing. Next up, Jaguars. I have them 9-8 as well. Jaguars edged the Colts in the tiebreaker. Jacksonville Jaguars, I do think, as much as I do think Trevor Lawrence is overrated, I do think people are kind of forgetting that the Jags were 8-3 last year before he got dinged up. So I think Trevor Lawrence will have the best season of his career. However, I still have some question marks on their roster. I don't like their offensive line. Their offensive line last year wasn't good. I didn't really do anything to address it in the draft. Their pass defense last year was bad, and I don't love their secondary much. However, you still have Travis Etienne Jr., who I think is a fantastic running back. You have a nice wide receiver core with Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis, and Brian Thomas Jr. Evan Ingram's a very good tight end. Doug Peterson's a solid head coach. Like, it's similar to the Colts. These guys are solid. But again, I think Josh Allen on the defense, he's their best player by a mile. Their front seven as a whole is terrific. You have Eric Armstead, Trayvon Walker, I can't say the linebacker's name. Oluokun from I think he played for the Atlanta Falcons, was it? Forget. Devin Lloyd there. So they've got a very nice team. I think I tried to get them to 10 wins. I really did. But I think they'll get around the same as the Colts. I think them and the Colts will be very similar. They're very similar teams in terms of quality. I think they have glaring holes, but I think Trevor Lawrence will have a better year than Anthony Richardson will, and I do like their receiving core a bit more. So I think the Jags will go 9-8 with the potential being 10-7. I tried to give them that 10th win, but I just couldn't. But I think the Jags, there's just too many question marks for me to put them at 10-11 wins. They'll be right there at the end, but I think they missed the playoffs just by a little bit. But I think they'll be good. They'll be fine. They're winning that division emphatically. Houston Texans. My goodness, what? I think the Texans. Their schedule's tough, but I think that they still win 12 games. Absolutely love what the Houston Texans are doing with their football team. And it all starts quarterback CJ Stroud. He to me is already a top 5 quarterback, and I think he'll end this season as a top 3, maybe even top 2 quarterback. I think he could be mentioned as the next guy behind Mahomes. And you look at their offense, you added Joe Mixon, you got him and Dameon Pierce there, and this wide receiver room, Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell. You have Robert Woods there as a 4th option, Dalton Schultz as your tight end. You have one of the best left tackles in football, Laramie Tunsil. Slight concerns at right tackle and center a little bit, but I still think their offensive line will be solid. And you look at this defense, you have Will Anderson on one side, Daniil Hunter on the other, Danico Autry when he comes back. Slight concerns at linebacker, although I do think, I can't say his name, Aziz Al-Shaair is a solid player. I think they signed him. I do think that they added him in. I might be tripping. Let me look that up. They added him he was at the Niners and the Titans last year. So that's a nice addition. And their secondary, you have Derek Stingley Jr., who I think is one of the best corners in football. You have a nice safety room. You added Kalen Bullock, who's really, really good. You got Jimmy Ward as your free safety. Kamari Lassiter, you added him through the draft. You have D'Amico Ryans, who I think is one of the top. He'll enter the top 10 coaches in football. What him and CJ Stroud did with that team last year was just terrific. I think this team is stacked top to bottom. You have the quarterback. You've got a solid run game. You have terrific wide receivers, great left tackle, and their pass rush is going to be unbelievable with Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter. You have the secondary. You have the youth. Like, they've done what you need to do in order to have success in the NFL. This is one of the routes you take. You draft a quarterback. He works out right away, and you stack the team with talent. Like, they were already terrific last year, and they added Stephon Diggs and Daniil Hunter. So watch out for the Texans this year. They're going to be really good. Now, I believe moving on to the AFC West, Denver Broncos, I think they will go 3-14. It feels harsh because I do like what Bo Nix has shown in the preseason. I do. But where's the talent on Denver? I think Javonte Williams is all right. Courtland Sutton's a very good wide receiver. Aside from on their offense, both tackles are okay. Quinn Meinerz, I don't know how to say his name. He signed a big extension. And then you look at their defense. The only player that really stands out is Patrick Surtain. And who knows, bold prediction, he could get traded at the deadline to like a contender. So I think this team is just lacking in talent. I think next year they'll increase to 5-6 wins. But I don't think Bo Nix will be enough to elevate this very, very, very mediocre roster. I'm not that big on Sean Payton either. And overall, their D-line, you have Zach Allen, DJ Jones, John Franklin Myers, Cody Barton as your linebacker. Brandon Jones, safety, solid. But overall, they're just lacking in a ton of talent. Their defense was one of the worst in the NFL last year. Didn't do anything to add to it. And I think their offense will be mediocre. And I think they are going to be one of the worst teams in football this year. They have a rookie quarterback. He'll be fine. He won't elevate it. I think they go 3-14 this year. 5-12 for the Las Vegas Raiders. I think they finished third. again, wanted to have them a bit higher, but because I love Antonio Pierce, what he brings to the table. I think he's a great culture guy. And you saw last year those guys were playing way harder for him than they were for what's his name, Josh McDaniels. So I do like that. However, aside from Devontae Adams, Max Crosby, and Christian Wilkins, and maybe Brock Bowers, it's just that similar to the Broncos, there's just not enough talent on this team. Gardner Minshew's a game manager at best. I think you lose Josh Jacobs. Aside from Devontae Adams, you've not got great receivers. I do like the addition of Brock Bowers, but he's not going to be an impact player that'll help them win games right away. Their offensive line looks atrocious. Max Crosby will be terrific this year with Christian Wilkins. Their defensive line will be nice, don't get me wrong, but their secondary is still terrible. And they did go 8-9 last year. I think they take a step back this year. And I like the culture they're building. I do think they have a bright future, but again, there's just not enough talent on this team for them to really compete. So I think they will get around 5 wins this year. Next up, we have the Los Angeles Chargers. 8-9 for the Los Angeles Chargers. I do think they take a step up from last year. Jim Harbaugh, I think he walks in as one of the 10 best coaches in football. You have Justin Herbert, who's one of the 7 best quarterbacks in football. But running back, you lose Austin Eckler. You have Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, who are fine. But you lose Keenan Allen, your superstar wide receiver. You drafted Ladd McConkey, who's a nice player. Joshua Palmer's solid. Quentin Johnson's a bust. You have Will Dissly as a tight end. I do like the offensive line a lot with Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt. I think that will be a lot better this year. But overall, it's similar to the Bills. Who's Justin Herbert throwing to? Like their receiving core is one of the worst in the NFL. And their defense, you have Joey Bosa, who can never stay healthy. Khalil Mack, who's getting a little bit older. Derwin James, I think, is terrific. I like Asante Samuel Jr. as a corner. But there's holes on this team, man. I do think they're building something good. And I do think, again, with Herbert, you always have a chance to win every game. But I think they 8-9, 9-8. They're finishing no better than second in the AFC West by a wide margin. And I think that they're a year away from being a 10-11 win team. I think they're going in the right direction with Jim Harbaugh. I do love the Joe Alt pick. I think him and Rashawn Slater will be one of the best tackle duos, and I do think this will be the best offensive line Justin Herbert's probably had in his career. But the defense, the jury's still out. I do think it'll get better without Brandon Staley. Like they'll be better than they were last year, but I think that they'll be around 8 wins this year for the Chargers. And then winning this division, Kansas City Chiefs. It's just crazy. Like it feels like last year they won this. I mean, they did win the Super Bowl last year. They somehow got better. Like it's just unbelievable. And this should be pretty self-explanatory. You have Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, and Chris Jones. When those 4 dudes are there, they're winning 11, 12 games. They're going to be a contender come playoff time. I don't care what you say. I really don't. When you look at their offense, Isaiah Pacheco, I think, will have his best year yet. You added Rashee Rice. Sorry. You have Rashee Rice. Marquise Brown when he comes back. You added Juju Smith-Schuster, who does have chemistry with Mahomes. Xavier Worthy, one of the fastest receivers from this draft. Travis Kelce still playing great football. You added Kingsley Suamata, left tackle. You got one of the best interior O-lines in the NFL. Your defensive line, you still got Chris Jones. You did lose a little Jerry Sneed, but I think Trent McDuffie is a terrific corner anyway. Nick Bolton's a great linebacker. Like, what do I have to say about the Chiefs roster? As long as Mahomes, Reed, and Kelce are there, they're winning 12, 13 games no matter what. So the Chiefs, they get the number 1 seed in the AFC this year. And I do think this is the end of my it's the end of my AFC predictions. So I will go through the seeding of these teams. I have the Chiefs getting the 1 seed and the bye. So I think the playoffs will go through Arrowhead Stadium again. I have the Texans as the 2 seed, Bengals 3, Jets 4, Ravens 5, Bills 6, Dolphins 7. Those are my AFC playoff seeds this year. And moving on. All right, moving on to the NFC. We go into the NFC East. We start off with the New York Football Giants. I think they're having a rough year. 3-14. Last year they were 4-13, I believe, and they lost their best player. The only thing on this team that is giving anybody problems is their defensive line. They might have a top 5 defensive line of football. You have Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, and Kayvon Thibodeau. That's terrific. Bobby Okereke is a nice linebacker. Secondary, still going to be terrible. Their offensive line, outside of Andrew Thomas, is still one of the worst lines in football. And you just lost Saquon Barkley. He was their whole offense, and even with him, sometimes they stunk. Daniel Jones is one of the worst quarterbacks in football. Brian Daboll's a nice coach. He's not going to be able to get the best out of this group of players. Don't be shocked if he's fired after this year, because 3-14 for the Giants would be a bad year. But I think it's a fair record for them. Their division's tough. They get owned by the Giants, or excuse me, the Eagles and Cowboys every year. I think the Commanders will be better. I do like Malik Neighbors. I think he's a stud, but unfortunately, he will be underutilized in New York with Daniel Jones. And I think it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough for New York. I think they need a new quarterback. I think they'll get Cameron Ward in the draft this year. Book it. Next up, Washington Commanders. I think they go 7-10. I think they have an improved year. They went 4-13 last year, and I think they improved to 7-10. I think Jaden Daniels will be the best quarterback from this draft class. Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler is a nice running back duo. They added Bobby Wagner, who's a little older, but they did add a lot of players. And I love Terry McLaurin. I think you're going to finally truly see what he's made of as a receiver with Jaden Daniels as his quarterback. I like Olamide Zaccheaus. You added Luke McCaffrey through the draft. You did lose Jahan Dotson, but you added Noah Brown. Zach Ertz is a nice, experienced tight end. I don't like their offense. Brandon Coleman from TCU. But aside from that, it's still a pretty bad O-line. And I don't like their secondary very much. I do think Mikey Sanders still is a nice player. But aside from that, I have concerns about the secondary. So there are a couple glaring holes. But their front seven, you have Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen with Frankie Louvu as a linebacker, Dorrance Armstrong. They've added some nice pieces. So they're going to be a frisky team for sure. They're going on the up. You added Jazon Newton in the draft. You added Luke McCaffrey, Mike Sanders still, like I said. So I think they're going on the up for sure, but I still think they're a few pieces away, and I'm not huge on Dan Quinn as a coach. But I like what the Commanders are doing. They're going to be competitive in every game for sure. Next up, Dallas Cowboys. I have them going 8-9. Yes. You heard that first, people. They're going 8-9 this year. The Cowboys are not going to be a good team. They're taking a step back. The Commanders will challenge them for second place in that division. You lose Tony Pollard. You lose half your offensive line. You don't replace them with anybody. You have Ezekiel Elliott and Dalvin Cook as your running backs. If this was 2018, it would be terrific, but it's not. We're in 2024 now. Dak Prescott's a good quarterback. Mike McCarthy isn't a good head coach. In my opinion, I think he's overrated. CeeDee Lamb, if he goes down, their offense it's done. Like, he's the only player on their offense that's worth a damn. Brandon Cooks is nice, but he's getting older. Jake Ferguson is an all right tight end. Their O-line is going to get a lot worse. They did add Tyler Guyton and Cooper Beebe in the draft. So those were nice pickups, but they're not Tyron Smith and Tyler Biadasz, who they lost as well. And they've got Micah Parsons on their defense, who's a terrific player. Trayvon Diggs and Drum Bland's on IR to start the year. So they've got some nice individual pieces, but they don't play as a team. Like last year, their defense was very fraudulent, and it didn't get any better this year. They lost so many pieces. They didn't bring anybody in. I think their offense takes a step back this year, and I think they face a pretty steep decline. I think they're going to go to 8 wins. I think this will be Dak and McCarthy's last year in Dallas, and I think they're going to have to do some soul searching after this offseason. Look out for Shedeur Sanders to be the next Dallas Cowboys quarterback. But I think they take a step back. Like I said, they have nice individual players. They're not going to be a great team. The culture there is horrible, and I don't like them this year. I think they miss the playoffs. Winning that division by a very wide margin are the Philadelphia Eagles. I like the Eagles this year a lot. I think they have a big bounce back year. Specifically, I think Jalen Hurts will have a big bounce back year. I think he's going to be an MVP candidate this year. And think Saquon Barkley to that offense is just going to make that offense even more deadly than what it already was. I think Kellen Moore is going to be a much better play caller than Brian Johnson, I think was their last one. And they added Vic Fangio. I think those were two great coordinator hires. I think Vic Fangio will fix the defense. Last year they weren't good. This year you do lose Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelsey, so we'll see how that plays out. But on the defense, you added in Bryce Huff. You have Jalen Carter, who I think is going to take a big step this year. You have Devin White, Josh Sweat as your linebackers with Jeremiah Trotter being added through the draft. You added CJ Gardner Johnson. You still have Darius Slay. Reed Blankenship's a solid safety, and you have Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean that you drafted. I think the defense will be much better this year than it was last year, and this offense is going to be a video game. I mean, you got Jalen Hurts. He's going to be an MVP candidate this year. Saquon Barkley, top 5 running back. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jahan Dotson, Dallas Goedert with that offensive line. If Kellen Moore is just a solid play caller, that offense is going to be damn near unstoppable. So I think the Eagles have a big bounce back year this year for sure. I think they win 12 games, and they'll be a big threat in the playoffs for sure. I'm expecting a big year from Philly. Next up, moving on to the NFC North. Minnesota Vikings, I think, go 5-12 this year. It's going to be a struggle. Last year, I think they were 7-10. I think going from Kirk Cousins, I know Kirk Cousins was hurt for a little bit, but going from him to Darnold is a bit of like a 7-8 win to 5-6 win drop. They're not going to have TJ Hawkinson to start the year. Jordan Addison's going to miss some of the year by the looks of things. I like Aaron Jones as an addition, but he is getting older. Who knows how he'll look? Justin Jefferson is terrific. He'll keep that offense moving, but I don't think he'll have as good a year because he has Sam Darnold as his quarterback, who I don't believe in the slightest. Christian Darrisaw is a nice left tackle. They've got some okay pieces. They did lose Daniel Hunter, but you have Jonathan Greenard. You added Stephon Gilmore, which I don't really know what that's for. Shaquille Griffin. You have Harrison Smith. Like the secondary is all just very, very old. Byron Murphy's all right, but I think they're a step away. I think, especially now that JJ McCarthy's out, that really sucks the life out of them for this year. I think this is going to just be a rough year. I think you get JJ back next year, you add some more talent, and then they'll start going this way. But I think this year is going to be a little bit rough for them this year. I think they were a solid defense last year, but Sam Darnold, I don't believe in at all. Kevin O'Connell's a nice play caller. They'll be in some games, but I think their division is very tough this year, and I think that's where most of the losses come from. I think that division takes care of them fairly easily. I think the Lions and Packers both probably sweep them. I think the Bears will split with them. So I think the Vikings are going to have a rough year this year. Third place, Chicago Bears. They will go 9-8 this year. I like it, man. I like what the Bears are doing. I'm not ready to crown them quite yet, but you won 7 games with Justin Fields. You add Caleb Williams. I think that's a 1 or 2 win jump. The receiving core that they have is terrific. You have Keenan Allen. You got DJ Moore, who's terrific. Rome Odunze was the 3rd best wide receiver in this draft class. Cole Kmet's a very nice tight end. However, I do have some question marks about the offense. I don't like DeAndre Swift very much. They've got nice running back depth, but I think that could be a problem. And their offensive line, aside from Darnell Wright, I do have some question marks about that O-line and their ability to protect Caleb Williams. So and I do think what you saw from Caleb in the preseason will be what you see this year. I think a lot of good, but also some struggles. I don't think it's going to be all pretty for them right off the bat. But when this defense got Montez Sweat, it was a top 10 defense in football. And you have one of the best linebacking duos, TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds. You have Jalen Johnson, who's a top 3 corner in football. Tyreek Stevenson, I think, is going to have a great year. You added Kevin Byard. Like, there's still some holes on this team, like the O-line, and the running game, but this is going to be a fun team to watch this year, and I think this will be the best year the Bears have had since the Mitchell Trubisky division title days. So I think the Bears will be good. It'll be a fun team to watch, but I still think they're a step away from 10-11 wins. Second place, Green Bay Packers, 11-6. Just a terrific franchise. They just always seem to be there and thereabouts. You lose Aaron Rodgers. They've now reloaded. They found Jordan Love, who I think is a sleeper for MVP this year. I think he's terrific. You add Josh Jacobs to replace Aaron Jones, so that running game will still be sound. You don't have a true wide receiver 1, but you've got a nice collection of talent. You got Jaden Reed, who's terrific, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks. You have Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft at tight end. I like their offensive line this year, especially their left side of their line. And when you look at their defense, they have Kenny Clark, who they re-signed, Rashawn Gary, Quay Walker, Jair Alexander, Javon Bullard, Xavier McKinney, and I think Joe Barry as their defensive coordinator last year, he was one of the worst DCs in the NFL. I think with a new defensive coordinator, I forget his name, Jeff Hafley. I think he'll be a much better defensive coordinator than Joe Barry was. I forget his name, but I think their defense will be better than it was last year, and I think that their offense will continue to take steps in the right direction, led by Jordan Love. And I think how they ended last season will be how they start this season, and they'll carry it through the season. So the Packers are going to have a very solid season, 11-win team. 11-win season coming from them. However, winning the division, I have the Detroit Lions at 13-4 for this year. You can make an argument outside of maybe the Niners. This is the most complete team in terms of top to bottom talent in football. Regardless of whether you love Jared Goff or not, I'm kind of in the middle. I like him, but I have some concerns. In this offense, he's going to play like a great quarterback. You have Dave Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, arguably the best running back duo in football. Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's very good. I do have concerns about their wide receiver depth outside of St. Brown. I don't love Jameson Williams, but I think Sam Laporta kind of serves as a wide receiver too for them. So I think that definitely helps. Their offensive line is the best in football, in my opinion. And you have Aiden Hutchinson, who's going to take that year 3 step and become a terrific pass rusher. You added DJ Reader to an already great run defense. And you added some nice pieces to the secondary. You got Carlton Davis, Brian Branch, Terrion Arnold, who you added in the draft, Ennis Rakestraw. And you got Dan Campbell, who clearly has those boys ready to go. This team was 12-5 last year, and they had one of the worst secondaries in football. I think their secondary is going to be elite, but I think it's going to be a lot better than it was last year. And I think this team, top to bottom, is just stacked at every position. So I think it's going to be a very good season for the Lions. I think they got the 1 seed, and I think the playoffs will go through Ford Field this year. I like what the Lions are doing a lot. They've nailed this rebuild for sure. Next up, New Orleans Saints. I have the Saints going 4-13 and finishing last in this division. I think this is the year where they take a step back and pursue a quarterback in the draft. And I struggle to find a plan. I struggle to find an identity. I struggle to find a future for the New Orleans Saints. Dennis Allen's one of the worst head coaches in football. Derek Carr is average. I think he's going to be on his last leg soon. Alvin Kamara is getting older. Chris Olave is terrific, but aside from that, it's a pretty mid receiver room. Their offensive line, aside from Fuaga, they damn near had Derek Carr killed last year. I think you will see Spencer Rattler at some point this year. Cam Jordan's getting older. Demario Davis is getting older. Tyrann Mathieu getting older. Marshawn Lattimore getting older. These guys are just I think they're just going this way. I think they're due for a bad season. There's nothing I like about this team aside from Chris Olave and Tyrese Fuaga. The defense is old, and their offense is going to be one of the worst offenses in the NFL this year. I don't like it at all. And I think their division will be a little tougher this year. So I think the Saints are going 4-13. I really don't like them this year. Number 1 pick, contention for them. They'll be in the market for a Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, one of those guys. 3rd place, I have the Carolina Panthers going at 5-12. Still one of the worst teams in football, but I do like some of the additions that they made. They have done a good job of surrounding Bryce Young with some talent. You have Jonathan Brooks when he comes back. Still got Chuba Hubbard, Miles Sanders, who are okay. I love the addition of Xavier Legette. I think he's one of the most underrated receivers from this draft class. You add Robert Hunt. You paid him a bucket load of money. You're hoping Ikem Ekwonu can turn into a franchise left tackle. On the defense, you have Derek Brown, who's terrific. Shaq Thompson, who's a very good linebacker. You added Jadeveon Clowney. J.C. Horn's a terrific corner. You added Jordan Fuller from the Los Angeles Rams, I believe. So they've added some pieces, but I still think that it's going to be a little while. New head coach Dave Canal is his first year as a coach. I still think it's going to be a little while before they enter contention for the division. But I think the additions they made take them from 2 wins to 5. And I think Bryce Young will have a bit of a better year. You got Deontay Johnson as well. So they've done a solid job, but I still think that Bryce Young is going to be average. Their offensive line still isn't going to be good. And first-year head coach, I still think there's question marks on this team. So I think they'll be better than they were last year, but I still think they're going to be pretty rough this year. All right, moving on. Second place in that division, my opinion, would be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think they finished 8-9. I think they were 9-8 last year, won the division. I don't think their team really got any better. I mean, they did lose a couple pieces, but Todd Bowles is solid. Losing Dave Canales as OC will be interesting, but you've got Baker Mayfield, I think is very underrated. You still got a great receiving core, although Chris Godwin is getting a little bit older. Mike Evans is still terrific. Rashad White's going to be a very good receiving back this year. Tristan Wirfs is a franchise left tackle. Graham Barton was a nice draft pick. They've got a very good front seven. Kalijah Kancey, Vita Vea. Levante Davis, still a very good linebacker. Antoine Winfield's one of the best safeties in the game. They've got some talent, but it's their division, I think the Falcons will be tougher this year. I think the Panthers will be a little bit tougher this year. So I think as the way their roster is constructed, I think 8-9 wins is the ceiling, and I think they'll get to 8. I tried to get them to 9. I really did, because I think this is a playoff caliber team, but I just think they just miss out. Just because I don't think they added enough to really take that step from 9 to 10, and I think they'll go from 9 to 8. So I think they're still a solid team. Baker Mayfield's a great quarterback, but there's a few pieces missing from, that contending teams have that they don't. So I think they'll be solid. And winning that division, I think, is the Atlanta Falcons. I think they go 10-7. I think adding Kirk Cousins, Matthew Judon, Justin Simmons takes you from 7 to 10 wins. I like what the Falcons have done this offseason a ton. I think Raheem Morris will be a nice head coach. He'll shore up the defense. You have Kirk Cousins at quarterback, who's going to be a lot better than Desmond Ridder. Bijan Robinson is going to be a terrific running back this year with Tyler Algier as a great backup. Drake London's going to have the best year of his career, as will Kyle Pitts. Their offensive line is solid. They're going to be a very fluid, fun offense to watch. And on defense, you have Grady Jarrett. You added Matthew Judon. Linebacking core is a bit of a question mark, but you have A.J. Terrell, Jesse Bates, one of the best safeties, and now Justin Simmons. This team has definitely added enough to be considered the clear-cut favorites in their division. And I think they've added a lot of pieces, and they've kind of shown that they're all in this year. So I think the Falcons have a good year. They win the division, and they will be hosting a playoff game this year. So Falcons, I like what they're doing a lot. Next up, NFC West final division. I have the Arizona Cardinals coming last at 6-11. This is another team I think could be a sleeper. I just think their defense is going to let them down in so many games. Budda Baker's really the only player there that excites you. Sean Murphy-Bunting's okay. You added Max Melton, who's a nice corner. But I think this offense will be fun to watch. I think Kyler Murray will have a nice year. James Conner averaged 5 yards a carry last year. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be terrific. Michael Wilson's a very solid receiver. Ray McBride is one of the most promising young tight ends in the game. Paris Johnson's a nice left tackle. I worry about their offensive line aside from that. But they'll be a frisky, fun team. I just there's too many holes on their roster to really challenge. Jonah Williams at right tackle. Their defensive line doesn't really have one pass rusher that really sticks out. So I think, and Jonathan Gannon's solid. So I think there are still a few pieces away. I think they'll be a fun team to watch. They'll be a pain in the ass for anybody to play. But I still think they're a year or two away from being a playoff team. Next up, Seattle Seahawks. I think they go 8-9. They're similar to me they're similar to last year for me. You have Geno Smith, who I think is solid, but I still think the ceiling with him is 10 wins. Kenneth Walker's a good running back. They have a very good receiving core. That's what I'll give them. I don't love their offensive line. It was one of the worst lines last year. They don't really have a terrific edge rusher. I like their interior. I like Byron Murphy. Their linebacking core is solid. I think Tariq Woolen and Devon Witherspoon, one of the best corner duos in football. Julian Love's a nice safety. I think Mike McDonald will have that defense playing well. So they'll be a good team, but I just don't think they have the talent of some of the other teams in the NFC. I don't think they have the quarterback. Still, rookie head coach. I think their offense will be good, but I worry about the O-line. Their linebacking core is, they got Jerome Baker, Boye Mafe. Their defense, they've got a nice collection of players, but not quite the firepower of some of the top teams in the NFC. So I think they'll be 8-9. They'll be solid. They'll be pretty good. Second place in that division, San Francisco 49ers. I think they take a slight step back. Then they go from 12 to 11. It's still a stacked roster. You have Brock Purdy, who I think is very good. Christian McCaffrey is the best running back in football. Brandon Ayuk's going to be there. George Kittle's still there. But I do think this question marks. Debo is getting a little older. George Kittle as well is getting a little older. Trent Williams is great. Aside from that, I don't love their offensive line outside of that. And I do think that their secondary was questionable last year. I think Hufanga will shore up the safety position, and their front seven's terrific. Fred Warner, Devondre Campbell, Nick Bosa, Javon Hargrave, Leonard Floyd. They've got a lot of pieces, and Kyle Shanahan's obviously terrific, but I think there's a bit of a hangover from the Super Bowl. And Super Bowl losers they very rarely do the same. So I still think they'll be terrific, but their schedule's very tough. I think their division is going to be tough this year. And I think they go from 12 wins to 11 this year. And I think number one in that division is going to be the Los Angeles Rams at 12-5. That might be a bold prediction. I think the Rams offense is going to be a top 5 offense in football. You have Matthew Stafford still playing at an elite level. I think Kyren Williams will probably lead the NFL in rushing this year. You have Blake Corum there as a backup, and you got Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp. I think Cooper Kupp's going to have a resurgent year. You have a very solid offensive line once everyone gets healthy. Their receiving core is terrifically deep. And on defense, I think their front seven is very slept on, especially their defensive line. I know they lost Aaron Donald, but if you look at it through the lens of just looking at the defense, if lines through, just like in a vacuum, excuse me, I think you have Kobe Turner last year who got 9.5 sacks, Byron Young 8 sacks, and you added Braden Fisk and Jared Verse, who I think will both be ready to go right off the bat. And I think by the end of the year, this defensive line is going to be terrific. And this secondary did get a lot better. You add Darius Williams, you add Tre'Davious White, who is a little questionable. I don't know if I love what they're doing at corner aside from Darius Williams, but you added Cameron Curl, who I think is very good. John Johnson, Cameron Kitchens through the draft. You have Sean McVay as your head coach. Like, this team last year won 10 games, and they had a lot of injuries. I think they got better at a lot of positions. I think this goes from 10 to 12 wins. I think their offense is going to be great from the word go from week one throughout the whole season. And I think their defense will be enough to keep them in games. I think they'll create turnovers. I think they'll get to the passer. I think this Rams team is going to be very good this year, very dangerous. So those are my NFC playoff predictions. I'll tell you my seeding. I have the Detroit Lions getting the 1, Philly getting the 2, Rams 3, Falcons 4, Niners 5, Packers 6, and I believe I had the Bears at 7. So those are my playoff teams. I will now get into my playoff predictions round by round. This is where it gets fun. So, wild card round. I think the 2 seed Houston Texans will beat the 7 seeded Miami Dolphins for sure. I think Texans, like I said, second best team in the AFC in terms of the seeding. I think they'll take care of the Dolphins pretty easily. Bengals, I think, will beat the Bills. Bengals have had the Bills number. I don't think it changes. And I think the Ravens upset the Jets. I do think that Lamar will have a good game, but I just think the Ravens top to bottom are a slightly better team. And I think they go into New York and upset the New York Jets. So I have the Jets 1 and done. I just think the lack of playoff experience from anybody on that team, aside from, Aaron Rodgers, might cost them when, the Ravens, they're on a mission this year. They've got that playoff experience. I think the Ravens will take care of them. On the NFC, I think the Eagles take care of the Bears fairly easily. I think the Rams beat the Packers. They play us SoFi. I think the Rams get them. I think by this point, their offense will be flowing, and I think their defense will be hitting their stride. And I think the Niners are a talented team top to bottom than the Falcons. So I think they go into Atlanta and beat the Falcons. Divisional round. I think the Chiefs will take care of the Ravens ultimately. It's Patrick Mahomes, and in the first round of the playoffs, I don't see him losing with this roster. I don't see him getting anywhere near, but the AFC Championship game at least. And I do think I just trust them a ton more in the playoffs than the Ravens. I do think the Texans beat the Bengals. I wanted to pick the Bengals, but the Texans are a more talented team top to bottom. And I think CJ Stroud is going to kill it in this year's playoffs. I think the Lions get revenge on the San Francisco 49ers at Ford Field. I don't think they have a bye week trap game or anything. And I do have the Eagles beating my Rams. I think the Rams probably beat most other teams in the NFC playoffs at this point. I think the Eagles are a bad matchup. So I think Chiefs, Texans, AFC Championship, Lions, Eagles, NFC Championship. And as far as the conference championships, I have the Houston Texans upsetting the Chiefs. Yes, I'm not picking the Chiefs. I think the Texans are your AFC representative in the Super Bowl. I think CJ Stroud will have his Joe Burrow moment at Arrowhead Stadium. He will join Tom Brady and Joe Burrow as the only quarterbacks to beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. Texans go to the Super Bowl. They will play the Lions. I think this is be the first time these two teams have played in the Super Bowl, both of them. I think you're getting a Texans-Lions Super Bowl. I really wanted to pick the Eagles. I really did. But I think the addition of DJ Reader might be the key in this game to maybe stopping Saquon Barkley. And I think the Lions will have too much juice for the Eagles. So Super Bowl 59 will be the Houston Texans versus the Detroit Lions. And winning the game, I have got the Houston Texans. Yes, Texans to me. I think by this point in the season, they'll be rolling. And I think when it comes to the Super Bowl, it partially comes down to quarterback play. And I trust CJ Stroud more than I do Jared Goff. I'm sorry. I think CJ Stroud will have a hell of a game. I think he'll rise to the occasion. And I think they win in like a 20-20 type of game. So my official Super Bowl pick, my official Super Bowl winner this season is the Houston Texans. I'm going with the Texans this year. Okay, wrapping up this video here. We got award predictions. Predicting every award in the NFL: MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year, Coach of the Year, and Comeback Player of the Year. This is pretty fun as well. This was tough. I had some tough conversations in my head. However, most valuable player in the NFL this year will be Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals. I picked him to win it last year. Didn't quite go that way. I think we're getting a resurgent Joe Burrow. I think this will be the best year he's had. And I think the X factor in this, obviously still got Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, most of his weapons. I think the X factor in this is the last few years he started seasons off slow and he's still had great seasons. I don't think he's going to start the year off slow this year because I think the last 3 years he's always had some type of injury to deal with throughout camp that kind of forced him to start off slow. This has been the first full camp he's had since he got into the NFL. And I think that's going to do him a world of good. And I think he starts off the season fast. They've got a very easy schedule. And I think, let's say he goes into Arrowhead week 2, beats Mahomes, then gets a primetime Monday night game against the Commanders, lights them up. That MVP case will be built right there, and he only gets better as the year progresses. I think he's got a great line this year. So I think Joe Burrow going to be a man on a mission. I think he wins the MVP this year. I think he has 40 touchdown passes. Offensive Player of the Year, I got Garrett Wilson winning this. This dude's about to go nuts. I'm telling you, man. I picked him first with the 11th overall pick in my fantasy draft. This dude's about to go stupid this year. This will be Aaron Rodgers to Davante Adams 2.0. You will not be able to notice the difference. I think Garrett Wilson is one of the most talented receivers in football, and he's put up back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons with Zach Wilson, with Aaron Rodgers, and plus they don't really have another weapon on the offense. So he's going to get force-fed. He's going to get, I think, 1,700 yards is what he's going to get. 120 catches, 100 maybe more. I don't know. Garrett Wilson to me is going to go off. I do think there's other options like Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase. I'm taking Garrett Wilson. I'm being a bit different here, but I believe it. I think he's going to go nuts this year. And I think with Breece Hall, that'll make the box a little more stacked, so that'll just help him even more. So I think Garrett Wilson is going to have a terrific year, 1,800 yards this year. Book it. I think he wins Offensive Player of the Year with Aaron Rodgers throwing him the football. Next up, Defensive Player of the Year. Give me Max Crosby. I think the X factor to this is adding Christian Wilkins on the interior. I think that will only help Max Crosby, and I think this will be the year that he gets 17, 18 sacks. I think he's one of the best defensive linemen in the NFL. Just an absolute demon. And I think the Raiders' offense is going to be very good. So their defense is going to be on the field a lot, and that means Max Crosby is going to have crazy, crazy stats. So I think Max Crosby, in my opinion, will be the Defensive Player of the Year. I did think about TJ Watt. I'm going to go Max Crosby, although I do think TJ Watt could win it as well. I'm going Max Crosby this year. Coach of the Year, Robert Saleh. This is the thing. I don't love Saleh as a coach. This isn't really me saying that he's the best coach, but I think it's the storyline with Robert Saleh that's the selling point. I think if the Jets win the division, he'll have the storyline. He will have won the division with the Jets. I don't think there was really any other storyline out of my standings that really would have made a guy coach of the year. Maybe Raheem Morris could, but I think Saleh will win more games. So I think this is his award to lose, in my opinion, even though I don't love him as a coach. And then Offensive Rookie of the Year, I think Jaden Daniels wins. I think he has the best rookie year. I think he will combine, I think he'll have 30 total TDs, over 4,000 total yards, and I think I think he'll be more consistent on a more consistent basis than Caleb. I think you could say Caleb will win it. You could say Marvin Harrison. I'm going with Jane Daniels. I think he's going to be the best quarterback in this draft, and I'm sticking to it. I'm picking him to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's got nice weapons. I think he'll run for a ton of yards. I think he'll be incredible right off the bat, explosive, dangerous player. I think he's going to be very good. I think he takes it home. I'm excited to see what he can do. And then I think this is final. No, second to last, Defensive Rookie of the Year, Jared Verse of the Los Angeles Rams. I think he's one of the more pro-ready defensive linemen right away. And I think, last year you had Kobe Turner and Byron Young have great rookie years. I think Jared Verse will come in day one, make an impact, and I think he gets 8-9 sacks right off the bat. And I think he takes this award home. I think he's got great interior help with Braden Fisk and Kobe Turner, and he knows how to play with Braden Fisk. So I think that'll help him a lot as well. I think Jared Verse gets the Defensive Rookie of the Year. And comeback player of the year to me is Aaron Rodgers. I think this should be pretty obvious. He's coming back from playing 4 snaps. If he wins the division and plays the way I think he will, I think that's a lock, in my opinion. I don't think you really need to explain that. And there we go. Those are my official picks for record, Super Bowl, and awards. Appreciate you guys for watching. Again, make sure you drop a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel for more content. I'll see you guys later. We'll preview the Rams-Lions game this week. We'll give you some picks. But for now, deuces. Blurry. Camera's a bit blurry. Apologies. But appreciate you guys for tuning in. No promises on the schedule. I'm a little all over the place with the schedule, so I might have another one of these, might not, might just be videos. We're figuring stuff out. But I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I'll read a few comments at it. Yeah, I agree. I think Verse is going to be very good. I was happy with that pick a lot. Damn, my camera's blurry. Shit. Damn. We'll do a 10-minute mailbag. Why not? Or a 5-minute mailbag. I have stuff to do. Yeah, I had Crosby winning. Deep. That's probably it. Appreciate you. Auteur. Keon? I like it. You guys got any mailbag? If not, I'll head out. Anderson, yeah. Will Anderson's going to be good. He's going to be very good. Hold on, let me see if I can fix my camera. All right. Damn, it didn't fix. Appreciate you, brother. Still trying to figure out whether this is going to be good for me. Appreciate you, Tyler. Try to be reasonable, objective. Go Bowling Green. Yeah, Parsons. Yeah, that's true. Contract here. Yeah. Get your chicken tacos. God. No, you're like the last one here. Any questions? If not, I'll head out. God damn, it's gonna blur. Yeah. See you soon. All right, I think we'll end it there. Appreciate you guys for tuning in to episode 8. I'll see you guys whenever. Whenever. I'll see you guys whenever. Deuces.